Hi everyone, welcome to this video on understanding percentages by disruption learning. Now this is our second video series after we had a series on understanding ratios earlier. Now just like ratios, percentages is also an equally important topic for someone who wants to understand basic mathematics. Now, and just like the last video, this video series is beneficial for any kind of learner, be it a kid or a grown-up adult. Now, let's not waste any more time and just get started with the topic itself because it's going to be very interesting. So here we go. So before we move on to the numeric part of learning percentages, we need to understand what is the definition of percent. So when I go on Wikipedia, the definition that appears is that in mathematics, a percentage is a number or a ratio expressed as a fraction of 100. It is denoted using the sign percent. Now we know that when someone talks of fraction, they are talking something that looks like x by y. You know, a fraction is a relationship between two numbers, with one being a numerator and the second being a denominator. And when someone says that something is a fraction of 100, they mean to say that the denominator in such fraction is always 100. Now, what this means is that when someone says that something is x%, they mean that there is a fraction in which the numerator is x and the denominator is 100. This is what this sign means. Now when someone says it's 31%, they basically mean 31 by 100. Or when someone says 9%, it is basically 9 by 100. Now what does this actually mean? We know that it is 9 by 100, it is 31 by 100. But what is the literal meaning of this thing? Now, let's say a kid comes to you and says that I've scored 33% marks in an exam. Now what he means is that if the total marks in that exam were 100, now, I'm not saying that actually the total marks are 100. He means to say that if the total marks in that exam were 100, he would have scored 33 out of 100. And this is what it means. Now, let's take another example. Let's say someone comes to you and says that I have 50% of the total money. Now, what he means is that if the total money was 100, I would have got 50 out of it. Now, this denominator of 100 doesn't necessarily need to be 100 in the actual scenario. What we are trying to see, or what we are trying to say, is that with this percent sign, we want to convey that if the total was 100, I would have got 50, or the person would have got 50. Now, this might seem a bit complicated at the start, but once we move on, we would learn that easily. Now, just one thing that we need to remember is that this sign actually denotes a fraction in which the denominator is 100. That's it. That's what we need to remember for now. Now let's move on to the next slide and we will learn a bit more about percentages. So this slide is about teaching basic calculation of percentages. Now let's learn it. Now for that we will take a scenario. Let's say a kid has a test in which total marks were 60 and he scored 40 out of it. Now, what if we want to calculate the percentage of it? And the basic way for it is that we need to keep the base or the total marks as the denominator, the actual score as the numerator, and we need to multiply it by 100. Now, whatever the result is going to be our answer for calculating the percent. Now, this is 200 by 3 and 66.67%. Now, what this means, that the kid has scored 40 out of 60. His percentage is 66.67%. This means that if the total marks were 100, he would have got 66.67 in that exam. I know it seems a bit odd once we talk about the literal definition, but the application is basically quite easy. Now let's take another example. Let's say there are two friends, A and B. They have a total of 25 rupees. Now A says I have 12 rupees and he wants to know how much percent of money he has. Now again, we will keep the total as the denominator, the actual holding as the numerator, and would multiply it by 100, and this would turn out to be 48%. As simple as that. This is again the very plain basic calculation of percentages. This is not even an application. This is just start of percentages. We would know the applications in upcoming videos, and then things would get a bit easier for most of the viewers. But this is just the start of it. So now we will move on to the next slide and learn one more property of percentage. Now this slide is about the similarity between ratios and percentages. But first let's get our ratios right. I hope you all would have understood what is ratios if you have watched the last video series. Now let's say in a scenario A and B have a ratio of 2:3. Let's say this is of fruits. So he has 2 fruits and B has 3 fruits. Now we know that A's relation with the total looks something like this, that out of total of 5 fruits, A has got 2 fruits, right? Now we also know that if a ratio is multiplied by anything on both sides, the ratio does not change, only the values change. And we know that percent is a fraction in which the denominator is always 100, right? Now let's say I have 2/5 and I want to convert it into something in which the denominator is 100, right? And I don't know the numerator. Now to convert 5 to 100, I need to multiply it by 20. You know that? And if I multiply the denominator by 20, I can also multiply the numerator by 20. This would turn out to be 40/100, and simply I know the percentage of A, right? Now I know that A has got 40% of the money or 40% of the apples. As simple as that. Now I would take one more scenario to get it, to tell you the significance of this similarity. Now let's say someone says that A, B and C share money in the ratio of 2:3:5. Now also the person asks you that what percentage of money does A have. Now I know that A has got 2 out of the total ratio of 2 and 3 and 5. So simply he has got 2/10 of it, right? Now to convert 10 into 100, I need to multiply 10 with 10, right? So if I multiply the denominator by 10, I can also multiply the numerator by 10, right? So this would turn out to be 20/100, and A has simply got 20% of the money. Now the purpose of this slide was to tell you the relation between ratio and percentage, and how one can use the concept of ratios to understand percentage in an easier manner. This is not actually necessary to learn, but in case you know it, things get easier for you. So this was it for this video. This was just to tell the definition of percentage. The basic purpose of this video was only to know the definition of percentage. If in case you've got it, it's very good. If in case you've not got it, we will go through the applications of percentages in the next video, and things will get a bit easier there. So that's it. I hope you liked the video. So we'll meet in the next one. Goodbye.